Rotarians, please all rise for a four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it the truth?
Second,
Is it the area of concern?
third,
Will it be well, make friendships?
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Please be seated. Rotary song. PP pad.
Ebb is coming.
Sing louder.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, Las Bells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is now on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, a prophet's mouth to serve the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, Las Bells Rotary.
Thank you.
Introduction of visiting Rotarians and honorable guests. Irene, please.
Hello everyone, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Today it's our honor to introduce our guest and the speaker. First, we are very happy to have Olivia. And she's from 台中港西滨扶轮社. And the handsome and gentleman Grant, and from 大同社. And also 郭子宽助理总监 Timothy, also from 大同扶轮社.
Thank you, Irene. Visiting Rotary song. PPF again? PPF?
Yes, sir.
Guests of Rotary, we greet you. Oh, guests of Rotary, we greet you. We want you near, the friendship is real. We are glad you're here today. So take back home a beat of cheer. We got some more fellows here. And one once more, you are near our home. Come again, Rotarian, come again.
President's time.
Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank Olivia's. Thank you for coming. And I just heard, we got so many first time today. We got this is the first time after pandemic we have this kind of roundtable meal.
Yeah.
And I just learned that Olivia, it's her first time to have speech in Rotary Club. So, and this is also our first time to have our district governors, AG Grant and VAG Timothy visiting. So thank you for your coming and welcome. And over this week, this Monday, we just had a district Rotary Forum hosted by PP Juice, and PP Oakley is the MC. And it's because our PP Air is the district administration committee chairman. So, so we have to go support, and we also learn a lot about from the PP computer of Rotary Club Dathun. And he shared a lot of experience how to recruiting new member. So hopefully we can have more new members join us this year.
Yes.
Next. And on Saturday, Saturday afternoon, last Saturday afternoon, we had an informal meeting hosted by IPPSN and Chloe, and we were talking about this is also our very first informal meeting of, it's supposed to be Zhongqiu, but we delayed to be Halloween party. And thank for IPPSN, like literally nobody, only he just organized everything for us. I even didn't know what would happen on Sunday. So let's just expecting the very surprising Halloween party. And then we have a Group 3 informal meeting hosted by PP Euro and Prana. And Group 3 is a Christmas event. And thank for the leader, May. She is really supportive and involving, and it's connecting to next slide, please. I am not showing you the actual practicing photo, but I would like to share that we had a modeling class on Tuesday, which organized by May. So let's just keep hoping, and probably we will show the final performance in front of you on Christmas. That's my report today. Thank you.
Secretary's time. First of all, 我们首先请那个 A2 分区助理总监 Grant， 那个当初来颁奖我们那个捐赠郑家裁剪庭的一个奖牌，是我们社长。
谢谢贵司的参与，谢谢。
哦，安尼使。
好，谢谢。
Okay, second.
Sorry. Actually, this one I should thank to IPPS, and we used his budget from last year, so and then we donate the how to say that, the equipment to Rtn Hospital. So actually, this is for IPPS. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we will have DG Trading's annual official visit on October 28 at B2 the Changrong Yiting. All members and their spouses are encouraged to attend. Please wear 21-22 necktie or silk scarf and pin. All board members and the club committee chairs, please be presented before 10:40. All spouses are welcome to join the sports program at 11 o'clock at B2 Hankou Ting. Program speaker introduction. PP Air, please introduce the speaker.
President Jimmy and Assistant District Governor Grant and Vice Assistant District Governor Timothy, also today's speaker Olivia, all my dear Rotarians, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm very pleased to introduce and have the honor to introduce today's speaker, Olivia. Thank you for your coming. And Rotarian Olivia, she's a charter member of Rotary Club of Taichung Harbor West Coast, 台中港西滨社的创社社员 and she have a very good experience in our district. In 2017 and 18, she's our VTT committee member. In 2019, She's a district public relation committee member. 2020, she's a RCC committee member. So I still remember Olivia visited our club almost 2017.
Yeah.
When you are the VTT committee member.
Oh.
And I trust that you have a very good cooperation with PP Sumin, right?
That's right.
And this year, Olivia is our district scholarship committee chair. 那个他是今年我们地区这个奖学金的这个主委哈。那么Olivia is she's work experience right now. She's a manager at Yuan Heng Li International Limited. Yuan Heng Li 国际开发。I don't know. Maybe you can see the Yuan Heng Li in the street. Is there any connect with watch?
No, that's different. I drove by before. I was like, oh, it's the same name, but it's
That's
different.
the same name, okay. And this company focused on red wine, sparkling wine, and cognac, especially from France, right?
Yes.
And next? No? Oh, I would like to mention about Olivia's have a very wonderful Rotary family. You know, she's husband is C.P. Paul from 台中台新社，他先生是台中台新社的创社社长。And her father is a P.P. Box from 台中港东区社东区社。And her mother-in-law is P.P. Donna from 台美社。So I think it's really a very wonderful Rotary member. And today she like to ensure special experience in a better community begins with you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big hand to welcome Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you for being here for your wonderful introductions. And then my name is Olivia. I'm just really happy to have this opportunity to be here and then share my experience with the Global Grant projects with you. I've done 3 projects in the past, and I hope my experience will help inspire you with your future projects.
呢邊講。
I think I've just been very fortunate to have this opportunity to be involved with the projects, and then people have given me these opportunities. And I think before I begin, I thought it's just great to have this experience that you are able to help the different communities from different countries. And I think working with them is deeply satisfying. So if you do have this opportunity to take on a project yourself, I strongly encourage you to be able to be a part of it. So today my talk, I will talk a little bit about what Global Grant is, its structure, and then maybe some of the application process if you do decide to start your own project. And I'll also share some of my experience, because definitely with each project, there's challenges that you encounter. And I hope that by sharing my challenges, that kind of helps you to address some of the issues that you may have encountered in the future. So that's basically it. I know a lot of you are very experienced with Global Grants and then have done a lot of projects. And then for those of you who are just starting out to learn about it, and I hope this information will be helpful for you. So let's look at what is Global Grants. I think it's just a very community-focused project on the international level. you bring together two clubs. One is to be the host, and one is the international partners together. Usually the host club is where the project takes place. So if you decide to do one in Taiwan, then you're most likely to be the host club. I think this is really straightforward, but sometimes you would try to do it differently. Like for example, one of my projects, we decided to become a host club. The reason for that is because we want to have access to managing the fund. Because usually money goes toward the host club, and sometimes if you're the one who's responsible for buying all the equipment, doing all the training. So it kind of makes sense for you to think, I want to become the host club. So definitely if you want to do that, you can discuss this with your partner club and see if that's doable. But you also have to communicate this with the TRF, which is the Rotary Foundation, to sort of provide them with the reasons why you need to be a host club if this project doesn't take place in your country. So once you already have a partner that you can work with, the next thing I sort of would try to identify early on is who's going to be on your team. Because during the application process, each club would have to identify at least 3 committee members, and of which one will be your primary contact. So what's the responsibility of your primary contact? This is sort of the person that would help maybe submit all the applications, kind of communicate with RI, and then if there's any issue arises, this is sort of person, your go-to person to help address those issues. So usually this is the person who sort of maybe initiate the project or who's very actively involved. I've had the problem before, like some of the community members are super busy, travel all the time, and then they just didn't have time to go onto the application platform to maybe help approve the application, and then you're gonna see delay there. So you definitely want to have members who are very interested in the projects, and then who would have time to go onto the system to help you approve it. So I think that's just to get it started. You already know the club that you can work with, and then who's going to be on your team. Next, we'll sort of look at the applications. To get it started, there are a few forms that you would fill out, which I'll share a bit later. And then the next one I think is very important is that you really want to get to know the community that you work with. Because there's a lot of how you design your projects really based on the community that you work with. What are their strengths and weaknesses, and how do you identify their needs? Sometimes you may think, I'm doing this to help them, but maybe this is not really addressing their needs. So you sort of want to figure out how do I identify their need, because you definitely need to provide those informations in your applications in order to sort of convince that you are doing something really good for the community. And the next one is for finding suppliers. A lot of the projects that people do that involved buying and donating equipment, let's say if you're doing this in Thailand, and then are you trying to buy your supplies from Taiwan, or you're trying to buy it in Thailand? I think there's pros and cons to both. If you're looking for suppliers from Taiwan, definitely the information is more transparent. It's easier for you to find those information, contact them. But there's also a problem when you have to export your equipment to the local country, and then maybe you will have to discuss this with the custom office to see the process. Sometimes it gets a little bit complicated. Finding suppliers locally has its benefits. Is basically able to provide really fast service of delivering it and installing it. And sometimes the after service is better. You know, they have really quick access, and if there's anything wrong with the equipment, they're able to get there really quickly. So I think these are the things that you have to start considering when you're designing your projects. Where are you going to find your supplies? And that would affect your funding. Because pricing will be different if you're getting it from Taiwan or you're getting it from locally. It would affect your budget, which brings us to your funding. TRF has required as a minimum of $30,000 to a maximum of $400,000. So your projects need to be within this budget range. So depending on how big your project is, you have to decide where I'm gonna get the money from. So there are two ways. One is DDF, which is district designated fund that comes from your DG office. Because each year, the DG office has a set of number of funds set aside. They're able to use it toward any project. So if you are able to secure this from your district governor, then I think it's great, because the TRF has matched 80% of that fund, which would make your funding process a lot easier. The rest, then you have to resort to your cash donations, which could be from individual clubs, or other clubs that are interested in this project that can contribute cash, or individual Rotarians, or even people from outside the Rotary Club. If they're interested, you're able to get that money from them. I think it's great. You can get more people involved. So these are the two main funding sources for you. So I think it's important that you sort of know where you're going to get that money from, especially if your project size is really big. So next, I sort of divide the project into 3 stages. And the first stage is your application stage. Just a few forms you need to fill out. To get us started, there's an application form that you need to fill out online. This is more sort of extensive overview of what your project is going to be, because it's going to ask a lot of questions about what type of project that you are doing, the community that you work with, who's going to be on your team. These are sort of things that you want to start like figuring out early on. So it just helps make the process a lot easier. And then your budgeting and your funding, that's why I said you want to figure out where you're going to find a supplier, because you have to list out very detailed budget for each items. The supplies you're going to purchase, and then also if you're doing trainings, how many people are you going to train? Are you going to do both inbound and outbound? So because these are the things that really are going to affect your budgeting. Just because they ask for really detailed budgeting, if you don't get that like more accurately, maybe later on you have to go back and revise it, and it's really gonna cause a delay to your application process. And then there's also another form that is required by TRF, which is your community assessment form. And then this form just kind of asks you more in detail about the community that you work with. Because as I mentioned, this is a very community-focused project. So you have to really get to know the community that you work with. I think the question you have to ask yourself is like, how do I identify this? Did I already talk to members of the community that I know that I'm really addressing their need? Because these are the information that you sort of have to like really provide in the form. And I think by filling out these forms is really kind of helps you to design a really good project. But once you have all those figured out, carrying out the project is actually the fun and simple part. And there's also another form that you will need to fill out, which is the MOU. That if you're collaborating with any organizations, that you need to sign MOU with them. For example, if you're collaborating with a school in Cambodia, then you have to sign MOU with them. And then if you're collaborating with hospital in Taiwan, then you also need to sign one with them. So this is the form that kind of specify the responsibility of each party, the host club, the international partner, and also the organization. What are your specific roles in this? So I think these are the main forms that you will need to fill out during your application process. And once you have those all filled out and then submitted, then it comes to the fun part, which is your second stage. Then you get to really carry out your project. And I think for me, it's really fun because I get to travel to all different countries and then work with different people. And that's why I said it's very satisfying for me, because you really see that you're helping people there. But this is also the stage you want to start collecting information, your receipt if you're buying any equipment. take a lot of photos because those you use towards your reports. If your project's really big, sometimes you can't finish it within 1 year, then you have to file a progress report each year. So for my projects, they are smaller and easier to manage. For all my 3 projects, I closed them within 1 year. So it's a lot easier for me. I didn't have to submit the progress report. But if you do take on a much bigger project, then this is something you need to do. And then the final stage is when you have to close your project. I would encourage you to start collecting those informations. It makes it easier for you to submit your final report because it asks you to provide supporting documents, which is all the photos. If you're doing trainings, you want to do photos of the trainings or the donations or how they use the equipment you donated. So these are sort of informations, and then receipts. If you do have budget for traveling, then you want to collect all those flight tickets, train tickets, or whatever. The receipts you need to use for your report. Improper closure of your reports could affect your future applications, or it could even affect the future application for the district. So you gotta be really careful to close it properly. So I think this is just sort of those 3 stages for your like the project life cycle. So there goes the application. And I think one thing to sort of really look at is how you set your goals, because throughout the applications, it asks you a lot about what is your measurable goals. So sometimes you would kind of think, like, how am I going to identify my measurable goals? I think it could be really simple if you think about like how many people are benefiting from this project, direct benefits or the benefits from it indirectly. These are the numbers you can identify and then provide. Or if you're doing training, because in the past few years, we do a lot of VTT training, and then which is highly recommended by RI because they think it's just more sustainable and has more long-term impact. So you could identify the number of training I'm doing. So these are some of the numbers you want to give. These are the goals that you want to hit. So that covers sort of, I think, is the basic structures of what Global Grant is, and then how do you get it started. And then next is, sometimes you kind of want to figure out what are the different ways I can help, like different projects I could do. I think there's sort of endless possibilities, but for whatever you want to do, it needs to fall under the 7 areas of focus. Before it was, I believe it was 6 areas of focus. And then in recent years, they added the last one, the environment, to the area of focus. So there are different areas you can look at, like peace and conflicts, preventions, or disease prevention. That's what I did. Water and sanitation, or maternal and child health. My other project falls under that. Or you could do basic educations, or economic development, or environment. I think PPE Shuming did one is the economic development in Thailand, if I remember correctly, that you did the wheel cake project. And I think that was a really great project. They helped train people on the use of those tools, and then they can go on to further develop their, give them the tools to further develop their economic status. I know some club does the water sanitation, purification in Thailand. So I think there are just so many projects that you could work on. And if you really want to find ideas or inspirations, you could also go on to my Rotary, that's under Rotary Showcase. There's a lot of international clubs that sort of share what they are doing on Showcase. And then if you're looking for, if you still don't have a partner to work with, you can even go on to Showcase, Rotary Showcase, to publish your projects and look for international partner there too. So I went on there to look for, there's just so many projects in different countries. and then see which country that you're interested in. Then you can go and look for what are some of the current projects they're working on. So next I will talk a little bit about my experience. I did 3 projects before, 2 in Cambodia and 1 in Bhutan. So my first project is the smallest one. It's a fund size of $30,000. This one was in Siem Reap, and this one's very straightforward. We only focus on infection control. So we figured this out because the club that we work with, they already work really closely with their local health department. So they already have this need. They just need us to help them address those needs. So it's very straightforward, and we already know like what we are focusing on. But this one we work with the Rotary Club is all Taiwanese. So at the time they were able to like travel to Taiwan. So the meeting went really smoothly. Sometimes if you weren't able to meet in person, you know, the email correspondence, it just really takes a lot longer. So for this project, we donate sterilizers. And then for us, it's simpler because we don't have to find each individual hospitals to give it to. The local health departments helped us to distribute all those equipment. So we only need to deal with one, like this single contact person, and then just to get it all distributed. And my next project was in Phnom Penh. This is a slightly bigger project with a fund of $50,000. And this one, we combine both equipment donations and VT training. And this time for this project, we work with a local private-owned hospital in Cambodia that mainly focuses on taking care of mom and children. So this one, we try to help them prevent premature birth, and then also helps increase the premature baby survival rate. And how do we do that? First, by donating the equipment, both ultrasound and the incubator. These are the 2 equipments that they're lack of. And since they take care of so many mothers and babies, we think this is really gonna help address their need. And the VT training is we organize the training in Taiwan because I used to work at a hospital. So it's a lot easier for me to sort of help arrange all these trainings, and then I had all those medical resources that I can use toward the project. So they came here to train for almost a month. And then I think this is a great project. I think if you can do a training, you really get to be involved with the team, and it's just a lot more, I would say a lot more fun than just doing equipment donation. So look at how we identify the goals. For this is really straightforward. We're donating 2 equipment, and then the training is related to the equipment. So we just need to identify, the first is the number of mothers who receive free ultrasound. Why is it free? Because the location that the hospital is located is in a more industrial area, and then there's a lot of low-income families who doesn't have access to more expensive medical care. So that's why they can't go to a bigger hospital for a regular ultrasound. And so the hospital we work with has promised if the woman's from a low-income family, then they are able to receive the free ultrasound care. And I believe until today, we're still getting updates on the project. About like 100 women per year receive the free ultrasound. And so I think that's really great. Like up till today, we're still helping a lot of people. And the next one is that we identify the number of babies who benefit from it. So from what we know is the premature birth rate at the hospital is around 20 to 30%, which is high, I think. Before they had the incubator, the premature babies would need to be transferred to a different hospital, which is about like 30 minutes drive. And then they told us there's a lot of risk during the transportations and could cause a lot of complications. So that's why they really needed these 2 equipments to help them take care of the mom and the baby. So these are the 2 main goals we had to identify with our project. And definitely there are challenges with each project. For first one, because it's a smaller one, it's more straightforward, the only problem that we had was the funding from partner club. TRF has requested that both clubs contribute a certain amount to the project. I think if it's an international club or either host, that you have to contribute at least 15% of the fund toward the project. But for them, because they are located in the Siem Reap, and a lot of international clubs wanted to work with them. So they have a lot of project to work on, and they just told us, we don't have money to put towards your project. So they're like, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to get the money on your own. So for us, not only do we have to raise all the funds, we need to give them like a portion of that money so they can use that toward the project. So here comes the trust issues. How much do you trust this club that you work with? Because you're giving them a portion of the money that you raised to put toward the fund. And I know before there's cases maybe they took the money but ended up not doing the project. So this is sort of the risk that you have to manage. And then for my next project in Phnom Penh, a little bit challenge is finding suitable suppliers. Originally we want to find them from Taiwan, but then our host club suggests that we have to find them locally because it's just easier for them to install and then provide services. So it took us a while, and then the communication takes a bit longer because it's all through email correspondence. And then you would have to find at least 2 to 3 suppliers because the pricing needs to be competitive. So this is just through your applications that you need to provide information that you actually get quotes from different suppliers. And next one, a little bit of problems we had was to arrange a travel permits for a team to come to Taiwan. Because in order for them to get a visa, they would have to travel to Thailand. And then the hospital owner told us they didn't have the time nor the money to travel to Thailand to get the visa. So they want us to help them figure something out to help them travel to Taiwan. Because back then I worked on a lot of international projects. So I also had to work with our Foreign Affairs Department. So I sort of know who to contact. So I contact them and I ask them if they can help them with the visa on arrival. So they were able to do that. It just makes the things a lot easier for the member to travel to Taiwan. And then the last thing is the communication part. We trained 2 doctors and then 2 nurses. So for doctors, the communication isn't a problem. In Taiwan, they're able to just communicate and then provide a training with no problem. But that's a problem with the nurses. They're really nervous and told me like, we're not able to provide training in English. You really gotta find me a translator. Otherwise, we won't do that. So, but I didn't know it's gonna be an issue, and I did not factor the translation budget into my budget. So I was like, okay, now I have to come up with something. You know, I have to find someone who's able to do this, for free. But eventually I was able to find someone from the hospital with the medical background and who is able to help them with like the 4 weeks long training and then with the hospital budget. So that's just a little bit of challenge with my 2 projects. And then my latest one was in Bhutan. Amy was also there with us. I think this was a really fun project. And then so far, this is the biggest project I took on, with a budget size of close to $150,000. And this one we also did equipment donations and then VTT training, both in Taiwan and then in Bhutan. So, and this one we focused on oral cancer treatment. The hospital that we work with is a state referral hospital, so they receive a lot of patients with more sort of critical illness. But at the time, they just didn't have the equipment to take care of oral cancer patients. So whenever they see an oral cancer patient, they need to be referred to India for treatment. And it was very costly, even though everything's paid for by the government. But it's still very costly, and then it caused a lot of burdens for the family who has to travel with them and take care of them. So that's why we think it's really important that we help them to secure those equipment. So the goal here is also very straightforward. We just need to figure out how many patients we're going to benefit from this equipment donations. For each year, they probably receive about 20 to 30 patients who need oral cancer treatment. What's interesting is in Bhutan, they chew a lot of betel nuts. That's why it's sort of a culture. If you go to their home, they would offer you betel nuts as a gesture of welcoming you. So I think that also contributes to why they're seeing a lot of oral cancer patients. And then so the training, we also focus on, when we go to Bhutan, we provide more training on oral hygienes. How do you take care of your oral hygienes to prevent, like the oral cancers and that sort. To Taiwan, training. So we just need to figure out how many people, how many healthcare professionals benefited from this training. So these are the two main goals that we had to identify. And there are some challenges, but not a lot with this project, but it's mainly communications with the DG office and then also obtaining MOU, but I'll share this later. So that's my project in Bhutan. I think this is a really fun project, getting to visit the country. Sometimes these are the countries that you probably won't travel there for fun. But if you do project there, it really brings you there and get to kind of see the local community, see different, lives, way of lives. I think that's a very fun experience. So I keep talking about VTT. So I think I highly recommend, if you want to combine donation with training. So if you are to do vocational training, then you need to know, am I doing inbound, outbound, or I'm doing both? Because it's really going to affect your budget. You would have to factor in your travel budget, your training budget. Like for my Bhutan project, they also ask for Rtn, which is daily allowance. Originally, we didn't know we have to give them daily allowance of, I think it's 100 USD per person per day, and it was just not in our budget. So we kind of had to negotiate this with them. So these are sort of the things that you need to figure out how much of the budget you want to put towards training. So this is what you have to figure out. Once you have your team identified, then you want to look at your training agendas. Like, what are the goals you're trying to achieve through the training? Because you have to be very specific what you're trying to train them and what you're trying to achieve. And it also, for the planning part, you have to do very detailed itinerary. The training for each day, what are you going to do? Who's going to help train them? These are the information they will ask you to provide during your applications. So it takes a lot of planning beforehand for you to complete your applications. And you also have to arrange your travel plans. How are you going to get to Taiwan, or how are your team going to get to their country? And then the next one is purchase the visa applications. There probably will be a lot of cases where they're just not able to obtain it, or they would have some difficulty with it. You might need to give them money to travel, to a different country to get a visa, or you have to help them with that. So these are sort of things that if you are doing the training, sort of things that you want to start thinking about. How are you going to address these needs? And lastly, I will share, this is sort of the time management. You're thinking, like, how much time does it take to go from planning to getting approved and to actually do your project? For this Bhutan project, we're sort of under a little bit of time constraint because when we started planning in July, we already know that we're going to Bhutan in December. The travel date is already set. So we can't, the project can be delayed or it can be later than December. So we sort of already have a tight schedule that we work with. So we started communicating with the club in Bhutan and figure out different things. There are still some challenges that cause delay. The first one is some communication problem with their DG office. Originally, the Bhutan club, they were able to secure DDF from the district governor. But later, the district governor told them, we're no longer going to support you with this. So you have to come up with your own cash donations. I think at the time, we already locked and submit the project for approval. When you start going through the approval process, they would have to go back and change the funding. So this caused a little bit of delay. And the next one is we're able to sign MOU with the hospital that we work with. I didn't have that problem with my previous 2 projects, but with this one, we didn't know that in Bhutan, if a state-run organizations, they can't sign MOU with outside organizations without going through the government officials. And I think especially at the time, the government officials was out of office. We weren't sure when he's going to come back to the office and then help sign this MOU. And then since we are under a lot of time pressure, so really didn't have time to wait for them. So we had to discuss this with the hospital to see are there any alternatives that they can do and also give us documents so we can use instead of the MOU. And eventually they gave us a letter of understanding, still lists their responsibilities. They just know what the role they play. So this is then we end up giving that to RI instead of the MOU, and that works. And the next one is to change the project fund size to under $200,000. Originally, the project size is a lot bigger because we're going to donate one more equipment to them. But then we later learned that if it's exceeded $200,000, you need to go through like a tier 3 review, which is a lengthier process, review process by RI. And then we really try to avoid that because it's really gonna drag out the whole application process. So we have to change the fund size, and then originally we thought maybe we should cut out the training part to get the budget down, but they really insist that we have to do the training. So then we're like, then what are the alternative? So we ended up figuring out maybe we have to cut out one of the equipment, but they still want us to do another project, so they're able to get the other equipment. But there was no guarantee there, and then we ended up just doing this one project. We didn't get to do the other project to donate equipment. But I think it was good that we were able to get it under $200,000 to avoid the lengthy review. And then the last one is to switch host to international growth. Like I mentioned earlier, usually the host club is where the project takes place. But then for us, I think at the time, the majority of the fund comes from our district, from the club here in Taiwan. And then we also bought all equipment from Taiwan. Also did the training in Taiwan. So we're like, it kind of makes sense for us to be the host because we are pretty much doing everything in, from Taiwan, and then we want to have access to the funds. And then so we discussed this with our international club, and they're like, okay, if you can convince RI that they agree, we can switch roles. So we just had to do that to discuss this with TRF to see if it's something doable, if we can switch the role. So that's why I said, if you think you have some reasons to convince them that you need to be the host instead of the international partners, that you could do that. So there's some challenges that caused delay, but we were able to get the project approved in November. And then we went on to doing the donations and training in Bhutan in December, which was a lot of fun. Our team goes there to train the healthcare professionals on some oral hygienes, and then sort of share our practice in Taiwan with them. And then the team came to Taiwan in March for the VTT training. It was about a week long. They didn't want really lengthy trainings. So we managed to get it done in just a few days. And then finally we were able to close the reports by July. We didn't want to drag it out because usually the DG wants to get it done within his or her term. So if you are dragging it out to the next DG's term, then you would have to communicate with the new DG, and then it's just kind of more hassle that you have to, sort of provide them with the information and communicate with them. So it's just a lot easier if you're able to close it if it's a smaller project within 1 year. So I think this sort of, I hope this kind of gives you an idea of if you are to do a project, these are the time that you sort of have to allocate. And these are sort of challenges that I encounter, and I hope that you will have to address those challenges. Maybe it will be really smooth ride for your project. So I think that kind of covers what I think that you would want to know to get the project started. And then some of my projects in the past, and I hope that kind of helps to inspire you to plan your next project. And in my summary, I just want to say that it's a lot of fun to do the project. And I just encourage you to be inspired and then follow your passion or follow your resources. Like wherever you have the resources, that's maybe the area you want to start. Because then you can combine what you already have and with the money from RI, you can do something much bigger and just go for it. And thank you. That's my talk for today. And I hope that information is helpful for you. And do we have any questions?
Does anyone have a question for Olivia? I would like to thank Olivia with a very comprehensive speech today. I feel like I learned a lot before your speech. You should have come earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Today is a very valuable speech.
Thank you.
And I have two questions. The first one is I always heard from some members that they quite confused between RCC and RCCS.
RCCS.
I don't know what's different between them.
RCCS or RCC 主委. Comments?
Second question, sorry. You just mentioned the project fund size better be under $200,000 US dollars, right?
Yes.
And is there any minimum size? I don't.
The minimum, for the second questions, I think it's easier to address because the fund size, the minimum, it needs to be $30,000 to a maximum of $400,000. And then they're just like different tiers. And then if it's under $200,000, you don't have to go through multiple layer of review. But if the fund size gets too big, which is over $200,000, you need to go through like a tier 3 review. I think within RI, they will have to go through like multiple personnel to kind of review your projects because they're giving you much more money. So that's that. And then as for RCC and RCCS, I'm actually not very familiar with RCCS. I know RCC is Rotary Club Central. This is where you kind of go on to updating some of the information for your club, and then that's where you go. If you have done any projects, you want to do a showcase there, or just maybe as a club president, this is where you logged some of the things that you've done. But I'm not sure about RCCS.
I think it's more like community service.
Community
It's
service.
I think that's a new committee. They just brought out a couple of years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with the RCCS. Maybe I should look into it too myself.
You've already know a lot. Well, if anyone have more questions for Olivia, I believe she will be happy to stay here for a longer while for answering. But we would like to present our gift for you.
Thank you. Wow, that's so cute. Thank you.
Attendance report. Individual, please.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Oliver, for wonderful speech, and welcome visiting Rotarian community. So today we have 25 Rotarian and 3 visiting Rotarian. So today's attendance 71%. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you so much for a very inspirational talk. So we have many notes today. The first one, thank Olivia for a very thorough speech regarding GG. Well, welcome AG Grant and VAZ Timothy, 1,000 from President Jimmy. We have 1,000 from A2 分区助理总监 Grant. 1,000 from A2 分区副助理总监 Timothy. Thank you very much, Olivia. Very helpful and meaningful speech. Welcome ADG Grant and VADG Timothy to visit Daton Rotarian Club. From Air, 1,000. Air, 1,000. Welcome, Olivia. Thank you for the very detailed information, 1,000 from PP Shumi. The best speaker for GG topic. Maybe wine topic next time? Thanks for coming. 1,000 from IPP Asset. Great speech, thank you. We'll look forward to having you join Daton our Rotarian Club soon. 500 from Amy. Thanks, Olivia. Let me understand more information about the GG program. 1,000 from Irene. That's it, thank you.
Okay, what's coming? This Sunday, we will have Halloween party at the Rico Padron. And we'll have Halloween custom contest, all dressed in black or orange. All members and spouses this week will join us.
Not like the pool party, I'd imagine.
And next week, we will have annual official visit of DG Trading. It's also HNW Day. All members and the spouses are welcome to attend. The meeting adjourned.
Everybody, I hope I will see you on Sunday with your, I don't know, horrible or beautiful costume. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.